Engagement Reimagined, building modern journeys that convert attention into loyalty. So I like this because I like the back end of the revenue cycle, and I think that's fantastic. And Jonathan will be joined by Brian Clark, VP of Marketing and Communications from Aspida, Denise Milano-Sprung, CMO of Milton Financial, and Alice Milligan, Board of Advisors for Sunday Sky. So why don't you take it over, and I'll try to shuffle people into the room while you get started. Good luck.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm sure by now we're all tired and getting ready to get to the drinks session, which is why you guys all came.
Wait, are we holding people up from drinks? No one told me that was the slot we got.
We're between them and drinks, so I'm going to quickly ask each panelist to introduce us a little bit more, and then we'll just jump right into it.
Hi, I'm Brian Clark Call. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Aspida, which is an annuities and life insurance company based in Durham, North Carolina.
Hi, Ellie Plisick. I'm a strategy consultant at DemandSpring. We are a B2B, B2C revenue marketing consultancy.
I am Denise Milano-Sprung of Milton Financial. We are an RIA, actually about 45 miles east of here in Hauppauge, New York.
And Alice Milligan, I'm on the Board of Advisors for Sunday Sky, former CMO of Morgan Stanley, and right over through the tunnel in New Jersey.
Awesome, thanks. So I'm going to ask my first question to Denise, because you introduced a concept to me I've never heard before, joy marketing.
Yes.
And it's this idea around how to use joy in your, but almost beyond your brand, right? So let's talk about how do you engage your team to get behind this, and how do you make it more than just like one campaign? Because I can just see that's kind of a thematic idea, but you kind of embed it into the whole culture and the whole marketing team.
Yeah, so what we've done at Midland is we've actually flipped the script on how people look at money. So it's not about saving for retirement, it's about what does retirement mean to you. So do you want to send your daughter to medical school debt-free? Do you want to build a community center? So we use the question, what's your day that brought you joy? It's up on our first value prop. Everybody who works for us speaks about it, knows about it, but we pull that through all of our meetings so that the money is tied to how it serves you. It's not about the money, it's about what the money does. If that makes sense.
Does make sense. And then Alice, let's kind of build on that. If you've got this joy marketing or whatever approach you're using, in today's world, we're finding that us marketers are forced to be everywhere now. And with AI visibility as a challenge, we're learning that you also have to be on more platforms than yourself, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
How are we dealing with this?
Yeah, I think what's important is you need to be where your customers are. And so if you think about that, and we've talked about that in marketing for a long time, right? How do you personalize? How do you show up where your customers are? And how do you do it in a way that's engaging? It's hard to feel joy if you're trudging through, terms and conditions and all sorts of things. And so I think what's important is to think about, where you show up, social, through media, streaming, what are the right places? And then how do you show up? How do you take that content and make it in a way that's really engaging? And what we've seen at Sunday Sky in particular has been around video and the role that video now plays. As people multitask, as people search, and as people buy, we hear that 70% of buyers choose or prefer video as their method of choice. And I was recently just reading a study that said that between now and 2029, the average daily consumption of video will increase by 17 minutes. So it's really the way people are engaging, and it's a way that you can bring joy to life through the right format and the right channel at the right time.
I remember the stat, like every month more videos created than all of the previous years combined or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's incredible. And if anybody wants a quick little hack for AO-GEO, you want to create a video with the exact search title that you're going after on YouTube and post it, and you get yourself into the results right now. Brian, so now we've got joy. We're now on every platform. How do we maintain our brand?
Well, it is a challenge. One of the great tools we heard about it earlier today. You have tons of tools actually. You have AI, machine learning, all these different things, CRM tools, sales automation, marketing automation. But if you have a great DAM system, a digital asset manager system, you can make sure that all of your content is curated and the brand messaging is strong, and you've got kind of a central repository or a golden source, and each of those platforms can receive the content that you're pushing out. So that's really, really helpful. I think it's also really important to know that your message is going to be very different depending on what channel you're talking about, but the foundation of your brand can't change across all these different platforms and all these different experiences. So if you have the foundation there, it doesn't matter what platform you're talking about, and it doesn't matter how you have to customize your message to reach that specific audience. As long as you have the foundation in place and everyone can talk the talk and walk the walk, you can manage to keep it strong across no matter what platform is being digested.
Damn, that's good.
That was a
Ellie,
dad
sorry,
joke.
I'm a dad. I'm gonna have a pun
Dad
joke.
joke.
I am too, so I liked it.
All right, so Ellie, the buyer journey is changing. We know the top of the funnel is collapsing. We know the AI journey is going to change the life cycle. What do we do?
The top of the funnel has definitely collapsed, and as a result, I think the traditional playbook has definitely shifted as well. So historically, we've been able to rely on generating demand, driving our ICP to our website, listening for engagement, relying on that classic lead form, capturing that conversion, scoring it, and then routing it to our BDRs if it reached a certain threshold. However, now with the collapse of our traditional funnel, what we're seeing is that our ICP is no longer in our owned channels. So we can't rely on that first-party data anymore the way we used to in the traditional funnel. So we're having to show up and meet our ICP where they are, which is in the LLMs. So how do we do that? We need a solid AEO GEO strategy. And we really need to think critically about our personas. I know that in B2B, we talk a lot about the personas, but now I'm really, truly encouraging everyone to buckle down and get serious about their buyer segments and understand what is your ICP thinking, feeling, doing? What questions are they asking along their life cycle? Because if we can create content to help answer those questions, that's how we're going to show up in these LLMs. Another cool trick that I like to recommend for personas is that not only are personas obviously helpful in addressing our ICP's pain points and answering those questions, but we can also use AI personas to test our content. So we can build a AI persona based on a wealth advisor, for example, and use it, program it to test the content on certain landing pages, on our website, in our ad messaging, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to the new funnel and meeting our ICP where they are.
Awesome. All right, so this is open to anyone on the panel, and hopefully you all have an answer for this, but what's an AI-driven tactic that the audience can learn from that you've used at your team that has pushed or changed your customer journey?
I'll go first.
All right.
One thing that has been really transformative in terms of efficiency and making sure that our message stays the same, since that was my moment to preach a minute ago, is we've used AI to generate product FAQs and knowledge center articles. So when we release a new product, we have product specs and that kind of thing, and we used to have a writer who would spend hours writing out all of these help files and that kind of thing. They'd have to work with the marketing team to make sure the messaging was the same, that kind of thing. But we're able to put all of that into AI now and generate these articles and then just have a rigorous review process, which we still had to do before. But we've saved so much time, which means that the people that were doing that before can focus on other more meaningful tasks that are, customer-centric and important to the process.
Totally. So that's a simple tactic on all of your content now. AO loves answer engine optimization. That's what AO stands for, right? Loves answers, FAQ section, marked schema. You're good to go for sure.
I'll add, so one of the things that we do is when we'll ask it to write in AEO, I've actually trained separate chatbots. So they're fed already public information on our website, blog posts that advisors have written, so that each one talks just a little bit differently. It's taking the same content, but it's making it with nuances in language sound like the company, like the podcast, like each advisor, similar content, but rewording it differently based on how it's been taught that person speaks.
Awesome. Love it.
And just to play off that, one of the things that we've done is really around geography. A lot of the customers reside in different areas, have different interests. So as we think about, especially in the wealth management space, different communications around countries, investment portfolios, et cetera, we can customize very quickly by each individual. So if you're in New York and you're thinking about Paris and you want to invest in certain things, we would feed that in, and those customized communications would come out for each one of those different geographies and criteria.
Got it. Yeah.
I'll build off of content. I think that as marketers, we're really good at building and creating top-of-funnel content, blog posts. But what AEO thrives off of is that bottom-of-the-funnel content that's just really, it's not provocative, it's value add. And so I think using AI personas to understand what pain points are we trying to address at the bottom of the funnel is a good opportunity to engage there.
Awesome. So I'm a big believer in engaging an audience, so that's all of the pre-questions I have. So we've got lots of time. So I'm going to ask the audience now to get involved and start asking questions. I find at most conferences that we have more questions than answers, and so here's your chance to ask a panelist any question. So I already got my first hand here. Great.
Favorite LLM and why?
Favorite LLM and why?
I'll go. I use chat just because I already trained my bots, and it'd be really hard to retrain them. So I use chat for most of my content creation. We do have a gated bot behind Salesforce that actually does allow us to use proprietary information because it's gated and belongs to us. And that is also built off open source AI. So.
Chat.
My answer is kind of the same. I use chat probably most frequently because that's the first one that I started using, and I feel honestly most comfortable. But again, with regulatory constraints, I can't use it at work at all. So we have Copilot, which is actually built on the same GPT framework, but we've just started really using it to our advantage. So to be honest with you, it's not as good. It'll get there, but for right now, it's not working as well.
Yeah, I'll vacillate between Claude and ChatGPT, and yeah.
So I use Google Gemini when I want to do keyword research and anything about local. I use Claude when I want to write long-form content and do deep analysis, especially coding. I use ChatGPT as my go-to, especially if it's in my pocket and I want to do a quick search and query. And I use Grok when I'm interested in getting audience and sentiment. I find it does some really interesting things by grabbing Reddit and Twitter data. Yes?
So Reddit is the most used platform by all the different LLM models.
Yeah.
Thank you. Reddit is the most used social platform for all the LLM models.
Yep.
It's a little iffy to use Reddit for business. Would love to hear from all of you about how you're assessing that. Are you in Reddit already? What are you planning to do?
You want to tackle that one?
So, being in financial services in the firm I work for, we were not in Reddit. And we're constantly assessing it, but had not really made any definitive calls to do that. One of the ways around some of the platforms in that financial services firms tend to avoid. So we weren't in Reddit, we weren't in TikTok. A lot of times what we would do is use social influencers in those platforms so that it was sort of their brand and their recommendation, not necessarily ours.
We don't use Reddit, similar for compliance reasons, but I will tell you, we started about 6 or 7 weeks ago. People have started to call our offices saying that they were recommended by ChatGPT. So that's just to say you don't need it for the bot to recognize you.
Well, I'll share a fun fact. So everyone is worried about Reddit. So Reddit, Wikipedia, and NerdWallet tend to be the top 3 resources for financial service organizations. But in the last 4 weeks, Reddit and Wikipedia have lost 50% of the allocation of the citations. So their power has dropped
Interesting.
50%. So they used to be in about like almost every search query they were involved. Now it's 50%.
You just made me
So-
feel better. Can I go home now? Like, that was totally my day.
So the world keeps changing.
We both have a
We
win
read
right now.
something, and things need to be adjusted, right? And
Yeah.
so we need more tools and more data. But that's a fun fact for you to know. So what's that? More sites. So you'll see like NerdWallet. You'll see like trusted branded sites are starting to pop up more versus a just.
The gentleman from Pepper actually said that number 2 in catching quickly is actually YouTube.
YouTube
YouTube.
is up there right now for sure. Yep. Great questions. Who's got some more? Don't be shy. We're making them run, folks.
Might not be worth the run, but you mentioned AI personas. Wondering how you approached building them, what tools you used, whether you did that kind of in-house or was there a third party that you brought in?
Nope. So we have a really, for a wealth management firm, we have a pretty large social footprint. So I feted a lot of what was already out there on social for the advisor's profile, what they've written about their families, the blog posts they've written. One of our advisors is African American. He's written a couple really powerful papers about trying to grow African American CFPs. So I built his voice off a lot of that. So it's stuff that was already out there in public. I'm just making it a little bit easier for chat to do that. And then because you can train it, I used information we already had, and I didn't pay anyone to help me do that.
So it's actually quite easy. So you can literally go into ChatGPT or any favorite LM and start off with something to act as a persona creator, right? And as we mentioned, you want to feed it customer data, case studies, quotes, testimonials, sales calls, anything you've got that's going to help it write more closely to it. And then you can also go through a sequence of questions on how do you create that. And the good news right now is AI can synthetically create personas at a very, very accurate rate. There was a research report that was published last month that talked about a study where, I'm going to get the name wrong, Colgate Palmolive or whatever the brand is, the toothpaste brand, they decided to synthetically generate 40,000 interviews, and they matched it against doing a real case study, and they found that the accuracy of the AI persona was within 94, 96%. And there's also another study that talked about you can create about 100,000 different unique personas with AI. So we're definitely in the world of synthetic. For most of us in marketing, we do not have large budgets to go out and create customer reviews and customer surveys. So we do highly recommend that you're always using some type of AI persona against it. And then I'd also challenge you to say that, as we talked about, the previous gentleman was talking about from Marigold, personalization and segmentation around emails and stuff, you really should push your personas to be segment-oriented. So what I mean by that, they should have an orientation to a job to be done that is very specific to that segmentation and not just the persona level. So we marketers have to learn how to go down a layer around the intent of our users and match that intent to our content, our strategies, and our bottom of the funnel techniques.
So just to be clear, I actually didn't do that. I built my bots to speak like the person. Again, our content is really social driven and now a YouTube channel. So I wrote some of the copy that goes on the YouTube channel that way. So mine was really to take the lift off someone having to write that social copy or having to write the script for a YouTube channel. So mine was really much more about behaving as if I were the person.
But I love that,
as
right?
opposed
I always do this in training. Like you have a bot, an AI persona helped create, and then we're talking about bots to review, right? So you have
Right,
both
yeah.
sides. It's phenomenal.
So
way
I
to think about it.
kept customer profile out of most of mine. The only one that has it is I actually have one that speaks to other advisors as we talk to advisors about the power of getting people to feel around their money. So that one has information, but it's more just so it knows it's talking to the advisor population.
Amazing.
And I will say that there's, yes, AI personas, but there's goodness in not every wealth manager, wealth advisor is the same. I think there's nuances from firm to firm. And so I think that to capture those nuances, we can still use AI to do that, right? We can record our BDR calls, our SDR calls, and our sales calls, and start to gather all of that insight in order to really drill into the nuances of our particular advisors or our ICP.
So there are tools that you don't even have to record anymore. Like we use Zox. If you are an advisor and you're not familiar with Zox, we have Zox on our client calls. Not only does it take the information and create tasks inside of Salesforce, it's become a wonderful learning tool for our advisors because it actually tells you how often you talk.
Ah, yes, classic.
And it tells you the tone. And it actually does not record the conversation for compliance reasons. It takes notes without recording the conversation. And again, it creates tasks, so it actually takes the lift off the advisor because it pre-writes the email and the task for you.
That's interesting because I know there is a lot of compliance and regulation issues around advisors, even emailing certain clients or prospects. It can be tricky. So
Yeah, which is interesting because one of the things that we did was used personalized videos with our advisors. And so you can have all of the content, whether it's specifically created, AI generated, reviewed by legal compliance, the brand team, everyone else, it's all set in the library, and then they can record their own video in their own voice or by using other tools and then push that out to clients. And we've seen significant conversion and improvements
that
on
too,
any of
yeah.
the products that come through there.
Especially you can use it for a client who like isn't getting you paperwork. And we've seen the video work really well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who's got the mic and who's got the next question?
So I might be the only one that's wondering this, but we're a little bit behind in our company. We don't yet use any AI. When you're creating content that's public facing, that's been generated by AI, how do you source that? How do you build trust in your brand and credibility by using content and sourcing it properly? Or do you create content and then modify it so then it's more of your own?
I mean, from my perspective, what we typically do is we use our own content. So we wouldn't necessarily push out content that was generated through random sources. It would be either our intellectual property or proprietary content, and our models are trained on that. Or if we're working on a sponsorship or a partnership with someone else, it would be their content that is then vetted through the right compliance and policy processes for us, and that's what we would generate.
Our images and videos and all of that are all authentic, and that's important to us. What I use it for is a lot of like the SEO, the AEO. So I'm telling it what I want to say, but it's just helping me rephrase it to help the models pick it up. And I will say another tip, as you spoke about, what's that bottom end question? You can encourage your salespeople, your advisors. They're often asked the same questions. They need to write them down for you.
For sure.
I think my clients have in-house thought leadership. I think that they're producing pretty phenomenal content themselves. So I don't know if there's too much AI-generated content happening amongst my clients.
The Google guidelines basically say that you are allowed to use AI-generated content with the caveat that it is going to provide value to the readers beyond that what already exists. So by definition, do not do any content that is top of the funnel because that answers stuff that's probably already out there. And I would never recommend publishing 100% generated content. It definitely needs a human in the loop review cycle for it for sure. And then what also the guidelines say is that it needs to really bring some type of opinion or angle to the article, right? Which is what something AI is not good at unless you feed it something at the start with your unique angle, with your unique perspective, and that way, therefore, you get something generic out of it. So you definitely can use it. The other thing the guidelines also say is do not publish a frequent amount of it in sequence. So they don't want you to become a content farm and publish, 10 articles a day just because with AI you can spin it up. So
I can give you a great sort of real-world example. Our founder is in the media often. So I will actually just take the transcript of that conversation and then just ask chat, behaving as if you were an expert in LinkedIn marketing for a video with this transcript, what should my hook be, right? So it's just helping me get the content out there, but the content is real and authentic. No one wants to read a transcript, right? So.
no. And repurposing that in multiple ways, different formats, absolutely, great way.
That's a good point. I think AI is fantastic in making recommendations for atomizing your existing content.
Yep.
So if we have some of my financial clients have a lot of content and it's deep and it's in depth, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity to help our marketers think about how we can atomize that content, optimize it for the bottom of the funnel, and then use it across our channels.
Great point.
This is great. Thank you all so much. When I look at your titles and the agenda, your heads of marketing are similar, and you're all using AI in your day-to-day, but I would imagine there's other things you have to do as heads of marketing or directors of marketing. What resources do you have on your team, and knowing that everybody should be using AI in their day-to-day job, do you have any dedicated resources on your team who are solely focused on AI?
We don't on mine, no. But one of our goals at a corporate level is for every department to find ways to use AI, basically to optimize processes or content generation or whatever. So I definitely encourage my team to use it, but I didn't chime in on this because I agree with everything they were saying. But
Making it easier.
Yeah, we are definitely not using it to create original content. I'm very protective of the tone of our company and the tone of voice, and I don't think that our tools have gotten there yet. I do encourage those who are not strong writers to use it to get started, but you have to make it your own after that. We don't use it for video right now. I'm still afraid of the 12-fingered man and that kind of thing, but generating video scripts, yes, and then we curate them after that. Corporate communications, it's great to help. Here's a good example. Our CEO, we're really working on getting his tone of voice perfected and a little bit more public-facing. Our company is very new, so this is all something that we're working through right now. But he just loves to have his tone, and then he throws it into ChatGPT, and then he loves what comes out. And so he gives that to us, and we're like, this is not you, man. So we definitely have to keep going back and forth and making sure that even though we're using this tool to facilitate and to make life easier, that we're keeping that oversight and also pushing back on him to actually write his own stuff. So we can.
Is using the Make Me Smarter prompt?
I don't know what he's doing, to be honest.
And just to add, from my experience, I've worked at a number of pretty large financial services firms. And, as a head of marketing, the strategy overall around AI doesn't always sit with the head of marketing. So in the firms that I've been at, they've had a dedicated senior team that has, a senior person and a number of people underneath that are very focused on enterprise AI and how you use that AI across the enterprise. One use case being marketing, creative, and content. Another may be around data. Another may be around sort of research and other areas.
Coding, yeah.
Typically what they do is they'll look at, sort of building up or spinning up use cases in each of the key areas of focus, and that you'll participate in that. At an enterprise level, most firms at that large corporate level try to coordinate and centralize some of the functions. And then, for example, on my marketing teams, we would look at using AI in a very systematic way so that we get it right, especially in a regulated industry. So some of the simpler places we started were internally, using it within, for our employees and within our internal systems. And then next, things like creative execution, using tools like Canva and other things. And then what we would do is beyond that, start to dabble in content, but in a very systematic, approach, monitored, ensuring that it's regulated and we're being compliant.
I'm seeing heads of AI be brought in. And what they're starting to do is they're starting to centralize the tech. They're starting to align on the strategy, the business value. They're starting to ladder up the use cases to certain pillars that align to business goals and objectives. And then there's a prioritization matrix that's being put into motion. So definitely bringing in heads of AI to move across marketing, but also across the enterprise.
Yeah, so some of our clients, it's not an open position. We're noticing people are stepping into the role and almost creating the role within the organization, and then it's becoming a kind of prophecy that the role's needed. because for the experimentations, the projects, and everything, you kind of need a central place for it. And it's different than the AI committees we're seeing. So we're seeing AI committees, which tends to be corporate-wide and talk about compliance and security and ethics, which is absolutely required. But then what we're finding is an AI transformation lead usually is coming out of marketing, and the research is also showing that a marketing-led AI transformation lead is more successful 2 to 3 times more than any other position. So if you're wondering what your next career choice is, you don't need to be technical, you just have to be willing to put it together. Great question. Who's got the microphone and who's got the next question? So usually in my training, I have to say, you all have a question. I know some of you are thinking, well, this is too basic. There's no such thing as too basic in AI. Ask anything you want.
Yeah.
Hi. So I think that the power of AI is obviously in not being known as AI. And as a marketer, I think we learn most from looking at our peers and what they're doing. So there's this bit of a weird situation of not knowing what was driven by AI from a competitor. If they're doing it well, at least. So how do you think about measurement specifically to AI and expanding how you're working on or leveraging AI in marketing, knowing that a lot of it is behind the curtain, so to speak, for those competitors? Like, how do you identify that and how do you learn from some of the best practices?
Interesting. Anybody want to tackle that one first?
Processing.
So there are a few techniques to find footprints of people using AI tools. So there are tools now that are tracking watermarks in text. Obviously, there's going to be watermarks in videos and images, but in particular in text, you'll see a methodology where you add unique spacing in it. So you have tools that look at spacing in your text to see if it was AI written or not. So that's one way of checking to see if it's AI written. Now on strategy and stuff like that, I'm not a big believer in copying competition. I really don't care what my competition's doing. I'm going to outmaneuver them, right? So yes, you can take AI tools and study them and track them and do all kinds of simple performance analysis and studies and stuff like that, but usually they're one step behind, or at least I like to think they're one step behind. So, I'm used to trying to push the boundaries of what's the art of possible. So unless you want to follow up, I'd be more than happy to dig into that one. It's a little bit broad, I think, for the panel, but...
I think it's an interesting point, though, because the end game, right, is driving the outcomes you want to drive, whether that's, customer engagement, whether that's revenue, whether that's conversion, whatever action you're taking. And the way to get there is good content that's relevant to the target, done in a way that's compelling and interesting, and then ultimately leading to that final outcome. AI to me is a tool to help me get there, right? It's a tool that enables me to create that in the right way, at the right time, through the right channel, efficiently, effectively, thoroughly, but whether or not someone else is using it and if their content is created through it, I'm not sure it matters, ultimately, if you want to get to the end game.
There's a question I often get that's similar but slightly inverted is, what happens when we all just use AI tools? Aren't we all going to sound the same, right? And to me, that's the most obvious. That means we're all writing the same prompt and we're feeding it all the same data, right? Also, the good news, though, is that it's a probability-based engine. By definition, it would produce something different every time. Now, how much of a difference that is, it's very nuanced on how much context you give the AI, right? So if you're feeling like your stuff looks like everybody else, then I'd say shame on you and your team. You're not giving enough context, unique angles, and you're not giving a good enough prompt to push it outside of what I actually call AI right now average information. Right? The only difference is that the average IQ of AI is higher than most of us in this room. So it's bringing us all up to average, but I don't know about you. I've never been told I want to be average in life. I don't want my marketing team to be average. I don't want my output to be average. So there's definitely ways you can push the AI to become not average.
Yeah, I would just reframe that and recommend we beat our competitors by deeply understanding our ICP better than they do. Like focus on the ICP, understand their pain points, understand their business goals and objectives, and you'll nail it every time.
And be protective of your tone. I mean, you develop one, and that's your brand, and that's what you're standing on. If you're very protective of that, AI can't, at the end of the day, is not going to replicate it right now. Hopefully for a while.
Great question. Got another one here.
Do you see the marketing team shrinking as a result of AI, where you have now AI specialists being stood up in the organizations and that team getting smaller over time?
You want to talk about budgets, team sizing, plans for next year?
I mean, I'll take a stab in terms of, I would say the first thing is it depends, right? It depends on the size and scale of your marketing team and whether you're resourced appropriate today or not. In many of the institutions I've been in, we've been strapped and never resourced, to the right level. That said, what I think and what I've seen it start to do, and I would assume this in the future, is there is opportunity to shrink in certain areas and certain functions. There is opportunity to sort of build new and different skills. So a lot of what we talked about here is there's somebody who's thinking about the strategy of it. What are the right questions to ask? How do we gather this information? How am I validating it? And so there may be a shift in terms of what some of those functions and people do. And how they interact. There's somebody who has to be setting the right strategy because this is one of a number of tools in the toolkit. And so I would see more of a shift and enhancement. Ideally, there's probably some functions where you're going to use less people just because of the sheer efficiency of what's happening. But not to the extent where we're decimating marketing teams. I think there'll always be a role for those critical strategies and critical people.
We're definitely seeing budgets maintaining and not growing, it looks like, overall, year over year for headcount. We know there's an expectation that you're supposed to get efficiency with AI. The latest research is showing that it's not as big as we thought. We're finding that effectiveness is the better value prop than efficiency. The previous gentleman that had the presentation before talked about Klarna. There's a great use case of Klarna laying off a whole bunch of people of customer support. They've now had to hire back a whole bunch of them. Same with Salesforce. So we're not quite there yet on trusting the models to take over a full role. What we're finding them is they can help us efficiently automate certain small aspects of it. Whereas I like to talk with people is how do we make ourselves more effective? So how do you bring in more marketing best practices? How, if you like the Simon Sinek, how do you apply that to your homepage? If you like the April Dunford methodology, how do you apply that to your positioning? If you like the ADA principle, how do you bring that to your landing page? So we marketers now, for the very first time in our careers, have the ability to take best practices, methodologies, and apply it with ease. And so I've never been more excited in my career of being able to do stuff that I've always thought it'd be too difficult to figure out.
And Jonathan, it's interesting you mentioned budget because I would say there's probably been very few times in my long career, 35 years, that my budget was ever increased as a marketer, right? It's always been flat to down. And so I think the other element of this is that it's enabling me not to cut every program and every initiative that I had planned for growth or innovation or anything else. It's allowing me to do other things more efficiently so I can take that flat to down budget and apply it to the things that are going to really make a strategic difference in terms of innovation, video, new technologies, all of those things.
Totally, right? It's coming right behind you. Hold on 1 second.
So Google for 25 years has monetized search.
Yep.
What do you think LLMs will do for the next 25 years to monetize a change in behavior?
That's an interesting one, and I don't know the answer, but what I will say is I've seen some really interesting data about the fact that LLMs are actually valuing earned media way more than paid media. So it'd be interesting to see if they ever flip that switch, but there's some really interesting data out there now about how a lot of the paid media that people were doing it wants no part of. So I don't know, but I thought about that and then saw the data and went, wow, it's actually valuing earned media more. So I'm not sure.
So Sam Altman has publicly stated that they're experimenting with a paid media. Let's be very honest. We are, again, very lucky as marketers have access to technology that is costing them way more than what we pay for, right? So they're going to want to figure out how to get more of that money back to stop burning billions, and they want to increase that. So yeah, so there is going to be some experimentation. There have been some thoughts around, like Perplexity a little while ago threw out an idea around, do we pay to place our data into the RAG and the results and make it sponsored by? I don't think that's going to create trust, right? So they're going to have to come up with a way. And then the only other thing that we as marketers have to also remind ourselves is that if we're doing pay to play, we have to remind ourselves that in the past, you know, an average user would query once or twice and then kind of grab the data they want and leave. What you're finding with large language models, the average user is querying 12 to 14 times, because they're interested in learning more, and then just one question kind of leads to the other, and the LLMs lead you to another question. So then the question then becomes, in that chat, are you sponsoring every single time or once, and then your competitors do it? Where's the timing in it? Where do you inject your ad? We don't know yet, but it's definitely going to be something we have to be very careful of with our ad spend, because I get nervous when it's 14 times.
It's a little outside the box also, but there's something to consider about you know, the value, maybe the cost is the right word, the environmental cost of running AI and that kind of thing. So if you're going to monetize it, like, you know, how much is it going to cost to do that to continue to grow? We're not being efficient with it right now.
For sure.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
All right, so the big clock here is saying I got
There was
2 minutes,
another
30 seconds.
question back there.
All right, we'll squeeze in one more then.
2-minute warning.
Thank you so much.
Time out.
Thank you so much. I'm really just enjoying this. I'm a communications professional, actually, and I do a lot of thought leadership and content. So such an education, really seeing the digital marketing side of this. My question to you guys is, what are you reading to keep up with all the trends and all the changes and what's coming up and how you should, you know, pivot and change and evolve your approach?
Favorite source?
So for me, I would say it's a little less about reading and more about experimentation. So as we talked about earlier, I'm on ChatGPT all the time. I'm in there, I'm trying to, you know, I'm doing everything from recipes to, you know, business plans and business strategies for some of the advisory and board work that I'm doing. I've used Gemini for more detailed research. I'm starting to experiment and see, like, what are the ones that work? How do I use Copilot? How, you know, just playing around with them, because I think you learn a lot by just experiencing it. I've been looking at, there's a number of Harvard Business School online courses around AI for leaders, detailed programming, all of those things. And so doing online courses and kind of just getting in there and doing things from a hands-on perspective is more how I learn versus sort of reading what's going on. And then just staying abreast of things through media, turning on, you know, notifications and email alerts and some other things when breaking news hits. But a lot of it for me is just about getting hands-on knowledge and using the tools.
Anyone else?
There's a number of thought leaders on LinkedIn that I follow with regard to AI, and I have a make workflow that I set up. So the thought leadership comes in, it's synthesized, and then it's sent to me where I can read that in my own time. So it's just a lot for me to keep up with LinkedIn and all the posts, plus doing my day job. So that make workflow helps me keep up.
There's a lot of newsletters. Sign up to all of them.
Yeah.
Use AI to synthesize it. I read
Use
about
AI to
50
synthesize
of
it
them
all.
I'm subscribed to. TLDR AI, Neuron.ai, there's a bunch of those. And then follow up the big labs. So what's really fun about the space is the big labs for the very first time are sharing the research. A lot of it's published on arvix.org. So you can, and if you don't understand the tech, well, guess what? AI can translate it to you and explain it to you in simple terms. So again, there is no barrier to learn AI now. You know? So anyways, thank you very much. We're over time. I really appreciate everybody. Enjoy the next session. We'll see you at the cocktails.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was a great session. I got a lot out of it. You've got to give my speaker a microphone, which will give me some time to filibuster. Good job.